a band, like being in a marriage, kind of like, or a partnership, or something like that. And Stryper has been together for 28 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2014, if you're still together, then you're going to be celebrating your 30-year anniversary. And what I'd like to get from you is your take on how much longer you'd like to see the band record and tour.
Oh, my take on that?
Yeah.
Well, I don't really know the answer to that. I mean, to be honest with you, it's pretty rough to be out there.
Yeah, because you're getting older.
I'm getting older.
Yeah.
It's not as much fun to go through customs anymore. And
oh no.
Take your gear on planes, and back in the late '80s when we were selling millions of records.
Yeah.
We had enough money that people just did everything. All we had to do was walk in.
Yeah, and now you guys have to do a lot of your own
now
stuff, and you're older.
Yeah, and it's not as easy to do anymore. And if it's I guess if it's still worth it to do it, where we're not going in the hole, and I guess we can continue to do it.
Right.
But if it ever turns into a situation where it's just not it's not functioning enough for us to make a living, then I would say we'd probably have to stop doing it.
Yeah.
And a couple of times we've all kind of been close to feeling that way about it.
Yeah.
In the last 3 or 4 years.
28 years is a long time.
Yeah, and but right now it just seems like now they're starting. It's people are starting to actually like having us to come out and
so
play.
you're building up some more momentum.
Yeah.
And the career of Stryper has actually been like this.
Yeah.
And you guys you're.
I'd say we're on almost kind of going up a little bit again.
Yeah.
And who knows? I mean, will we ever have hit records or hit singles again? I really don't know. It's a different world now.
Yeah.
And for the most part, a lot of our fans come to see us play, and they want to hear the old stuff.
Yeah.
But you never know. I mean, something could happen.
Yeah.
We could get something out there, and it would just take off. Now we got to figure out new ways to make that happen.
Well, sure.
But we're not starting at ground zero like most groups are. We've got a following.
I know you do, and your fans are some of the most faithful of fans. I mean, I've always been struck by that at how supportive they are. They'll go to gig after gig after gig.
Yeah.
And they love it,
mm-hmm.
even if they hear the same songs over and over and over again.
And that's cool. I mean, we'll always have that audience that we can go play to, and just make a living a little bit here and there.
Now, I want to tell you, I think a lot of the Latino fans who love Stryper can be attributed to, in a large part, to you being in the band. And what are your thoughts on that? And don't be modest, just tell us if you've ever thought about that.
The only time I think about Latino stuff is, just kind of like when I'm around my kids.
Yeah.
Because I try to encourage them to embrace their Latin history.
Their heritage,
yeah. The Mexican-American thing, because that's where I come from.
Yes.
But for the most part, it's just kind of like, I'm happy to be, because it's been a struggle for the Mexican Americans and Latin people here in this country. There's never really been any outward prejudice against it, but there's still a handful of people that look down on that.
Yeah.
Or have, I should say.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, I was just the other day, I was thinking to myself, what if there's any Latino astronauts? And there are,
I never thought about that.
Yeah, and I started looking them up, and I was like, oh, this is cool, and so to me, I kind of have that thing of, even though maybe there have been times in history where the Latin culture hasn't really been looked on very well, and maybe because of gang activity or whatever. I like to say that I want to be a person who is of Latin descent that has done something good in this world.
Yes.
And to show that, hey, we're we're people just like everyone else,
and we want to see. And you've done that.
Yeah, and we want to see the world get better.
That was my next thought that I had written down here is that you will go down in history as one of the most memorable Latino metal guitarists. Let's just face it. And that should make you proud as an accomplishment. Mm-hmm. And that's something that you can contribute to your heritage. And
absolutely.
Like I say, I attribute a lot of the Latino fans to the fact that you're in the band, and I think that's a big plus for you.
And I guess I embrace that. I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
It is.
I love being able to. It's great to go like to a Latin American country or to Puerto Rico or to Spain or we haven't been to Mexico yet, but hopefully get there soon. And it's funny because sometimes Michael will introduce me as Ricardo Martinez instead of us. And the place goes nuts.
Oh my God.
And I'm going, yeah.
That is funny.
So, I embrace that. That's really cool. I think it's neat, But I mean, again, I'm still for, I am still for humanity.
Of course.
That's my thing. Whites, blacks, Asian, whatever. I'm for humanity.
Yeah.
As long as we're all trying to do something good for the world.
That's right. And for our culture.
Yes.
For our background and our culture.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to ask you this, and I never have. What is your best Pioneer High School memory of any of you or all three of you? Do you have any?
It's kind of different. Because Robert and Michael were different kind of relationships for me.
Uh-huh.
When I would hang out with Robert, there was always something goofy going on because he was pretty crazy. And
I know. He always used to do those little drawings,
Yeah.
Where do you remember those? Where he'd do those little things on paper. And believe it or not, I still have some of those.
Some of those weird cartoons that he'd draw that were just kind of like wacky.
Yeah.
Almost kind of be like almost Ren and Stimpy kind of before it even happened. But he really embraced kind of wackiness like that. He'd come to school in a wig with weeds in it.
I know.
And funny glasses with eyes popping out of it, and I'd be like, dude, man, that's crazy. Nobody does that stuff around here. He was always very different. He always wore the platform shoes and a funky derby hat, and he was always kind of that way. And then Michael just hung out with a bunch of young guys. I was a senior when Michael was a freshman in high school, and he had a whole bunch of guys that he hung out with, and there were a lot of times when we'd hang out and he would come over and after school, and I'd give him rides back to. I would give him a ride to
your dad's
shop was a couple of blocks away from where you guys.
It wasn't too far from where they could take a shortcut and come up that back way that past the Reeves. Remember the Reeves?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So we did a lot of hanging out that then. I'd play a lot of music, in my truck, and he'd be sitting there going, "What's that? What's that?
Ozzy Osbourne,
That's cool."
Right?
UFO, Van Halen, Kansas, a lot of that kind of stuff that we were listening to, which obviously we've done the covering.
Well,
and
sure.
That was from those days,
Wow. What do you that kind of inspires my next question. What do you personally feel is Stryper's best recording, and why?
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, To Hell with the Devil stands out.
Oh yeah.
Because that was the album that I kind of feel like we weren't expecting it to be what it was.
Yeah.
But we knew it was great right out of the studio.
Oh yeah.
We used to take it to my car, pop it in the car after we get done mixing a song, and Michael and I'd be sitting there listening to it late at night going,
wow.
Man, that sounds good.
Yeah.
That's really good stuff. And so, that one really stands out to me. I really thought Against the Law was, at least for me,
superior.
I really, even though it was definitely a departure from the Stryper kind of typical stuff that we were doing, that's really what we were going for.
Yeah.
We were going for a departure and something that was more in your face, raw and rock.
Yeah.
And so we spent a lot of time developing that sound for that album.
Yeah.
And I, of course, did my best to be a different guitar player for that album.
And you did a fabulous job.
Well, thank you. I really was in a slump especially during the In God We Trust recordings. When you hear that album, you probably don't know it, but there's not much of my guitar work on it.
There was some overproduction, I think.
Well, and that's, because we were told that's what they wanted. That's what the record company wanted, something like almost a carbon copy, but better production of Devil to Devil.
Yeah.
And so, but to be honest with you, I was kind of tapped out on my guitar playing at that point. I had hit a ceiling in my playing, and I was kind of...
And you thought, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
Yeah, and how am I going to get out of this slump? And so that's when I started hanging out with Tony Palacios from Guardian.
Yeah.
And Tony already had he had like 40 students that he was teaching, and he was teaching like basic theory.
Yeah.
And he sat down with me and showed me that, and I spent the rest of, after the album was done, then we toured after that for I don't know how many months.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of time during touring that I could go into my dressing room and just sit there and start practicing.
In the tuning room, right?
Right. And I would sit there and I'd practice and practice and practice and practice. And it got to a point where I was doing even when we had time off, I'd practice like 10 to 12 hours a day.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
But it has paid off for you.
Well, then we did the Against the Law album.
Yeah.
And at that point, it started to show. As a matter of fact, people came into that mix session from the record company going, "Did you guys get a new guitar player?" I mean,
you were bringing a lot of something new.
Yes. I brought
Wow.
something new to the picture.
That's great.
And then, of course, later on, I got a lot of compliments from colleagues, one of them being Steve Vai. Which,
that's great.
Yeah, he came up to me and just complimented me up and down on that.
That's wonderful.
Work. So that was kind of a great moment, for me.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So that album stands out to me, and then there's the covering, which we just did.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the reasons why that stands out to me is because